Hello and welcome back to our study of Peninei Halacha. The teachers Rav Eliezer Malamed Shlita. Here we are, Yom Rivi'i, as we are getting closer and closer to Chag HaPurim. Chag Purim Sameach to everyone. And please continue davening for Chaylei Tzva Ganei Yisrael, Fuh Shalom L'chol Petzuei Yisrael, and the safe return of our hostages. Lili Nishmat, Sarah and Daniel, Shemar Rav Doron, V'Shali Shem Kam Damo. And please remember to vote in the World Zionist Congress elections going on right now. You can find the link to vote here in the text of the podcast notes, or just look it up, OIC-MIZRACHI, slate number 5. Please vote, because it makes a huge difference in terms of funding for all of our precious organizations. Next chapter, Dinim Nosofim, so it's just some additional laws based on what we were talking about yesterday. Keshapanav Shalom Ispalal Mol Sherutim. If a person's davening and it's facing the bathrooms, if, let's say, the door is closed and there's no odor, then you can daven there. But if the door is open, even if there is no smell, then you cannot daven facing there. I'm not sure anybody would want to daven facing there regardless. The tzoa of a child or a baby, which maybe doesn't smell that bad, does not have the same halacha. However, when a child gets of a certain age, where they're eating solid foods in a certain amount of time, let's say to 6 and 7 minutes, they eat a certain shear, you have to distance yourself from that odor. Some say that's already from a year old. However, this is only in a time of need, but ideally one should never daven or say brachos if you're near an odor from a child, particularly if it's something that's very close to you, and it happens when you have little children, diapers, etc. So we try to distance ourselves, he says, even if a child is an infant. So if you're davening in a place where there is an infant, let's say or a toddler, a year and older, and you know that the toddler is actually making in the diaper, so you have to ensure at first that there's not going to be any odor. And if you see that it's not going to be something that will cause an odor, then you can daven near this child. As long as there is no odor, and since it's contained in a diaper and covered with clothing, etc., then we don't have a problem with davar shebekadusha, which happens. Let's say you're davening at home and you're watching the children, or there's children with you in shul. I mean, these things happen. However, if it does cause a bad odor and you daven anyway, you're actually required to repeat your tefillah. If, let's say, there is a sewage problem, and from the sewer you can smell something bad in the shul, also you can't daven there. Sometimes if you close the windows, it's enough. And if you close the doors and the windows and there's still an odor, perhaps you could spray some sort of odorizer. Or sometimes they would burn something that would create a new smell to take away the old smell. So really, when it comes to smells, it depends on what people are used to. Where they didn't have underground sewage or modern day sewage like we have, people would just flow in the streets. And in the small villages, when they had sewage just running down the streets, so obviously it smelled bad. But people were so used to it that it wasn't considered a reich ra. And therefore they would daven in these types of shuls, or they would daven in places that were near these odors. And would only become an issue, let's say, in hot days or when it just became overly powerful, this stench. But nowadays, again, we have modern sewage pipes underground, etc. So our air is much, much purer. And we're much more sensitive to bad smells. And any bad smell, even in our days, or perhaps what they're more sensitive to, then you can't daven there. Let's say if you live in a moshav or in a kibbutz, and if you're downwind and you could smell from the animals and the whatever the fertilizer was going on there. If you're there all the time, you're used to it, that's not considered a reach ra. However, if you were in the city and you smelled this, then obviously this is something where you couldn't daven. So it's amazingly that it's subjective depending on where you are and what you're used to. And if, let's say, you're visiting, then you would follow the minhag of the place. So if you've ever visited in certain places on a kibbutz or moshav, let's say if you're in yeshivat Kerem B'Yavneh, for instance, I remember the first time I was there, and the smell is rather overpowering, but I guess if you're used to it, then that's the minhag HaMakom, and if you're a guest there, you would follow, and certainly could daven there as well. And if you're davening outside, you have to make sure not to daven near the garbage, where the garbage is open, where you have these types of smells. And even if there's no odor, but certainly it's not nice to daven near the garbage, so you should distance yourself at least 4 amos, at least 4 cubits, 6 feet or so, and you certainly shouldn't face them. So lots to ponder, but using all of our senses when it comes to davening. And please continue davening for Chayalei Tzvah G'nai Yisrael, for Shalom L'chal B'tzui Yisrael, and safe return of our hostages. Nishmat Sarah and Daniel Shemar of their own Mishal Shafim Damo. Please remember to vote OIC-MIZRACHI Slate number 5, World Zionist Congress. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.